All right, we are live. We are live. We are live. Thank you guys so much for joining us again this evening. It is Monday. It is March the 16th, and it's 7:15 a.m. 7:15
p.m.
Yeah, it need to be a.m., right? But no. I don't want to reverse my day. 7:15 p.m. And thank you all for joining us across Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube for our very special episode of Create Your Future Self Live. Today, we've done back-to-back episodes. Our first episode was great. If you missed it, please go back and check out that broadcast with Miss Lynn Delgadio. She gave out great information on health, mindset, how the brain works with keeping us in a healthy place mentally and physically, as well as how things work in the mortgage and banking industry. And in this economic climate that we're experiencing right now due to COVID-19, that's an episode you don't want to miss. You don't want to miss that. So please go back and watch that. And again, today's very special guest is Mr. Akins Macauley, and he is a former census enumerator, and he's coming to bring some very valuable information that our community needs to hear along the truth of what the census is and what it is not, and how it can actually bring positive impact into our community. So without further ado, Vic, could you please go ahead and introduce our guest? I know he's a really good friend of yours, so we can kick this episode off.
Absolutely. So Akins and I go back a few months. We both part of a networking group in the Frisco, Texas area. And we came together about a week and a half ago. Well, I guess it was last week or maybe 2 weeks ago. Anyway, we were in a conversation and he mentioned that he was an enumerator during the 2010 US Census. And he just shares so much information that was about, why is it important, what it is. And I just thought it was super impactful. We're at the impetus of starting the U.S. Census for 2020. So without further ado, Akins Macauley, thank you so much for joining us, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for having me. So a little bit about myself. My name is Akins Macauley. I'm a business owner out here in the Frisco, Texas area. My wife and I we own 3 smart style salons, one in Decatur, Denton, and Hickory Creek. And I'm in construction of a cafe. I'm opening here in the little Frisco area, Sweetwater's Coffee Shop. And just like Victor said, I had the opportunity to work as an enumerator during the 2010 census. I was one of the guys that basically went to people's house, knocked on their doors if they didn't complete their census, and helped them complete the census form. It was just, I did it as just a lock, just to find out, what the census was all about, to see how people are counted, what information was on it. And from that experience, I got interested in learning more about the census, reading about the census, finding out how the census is used, why the information is critically important. And hopefully today we can kind of eliminate some of the myths about the census and why the census is important to all of us.
Well, that's an excellent way to start it. So what is a U.S. Census?
So the U.S. Census is something that's constitutionally based, that every single person in the United States must be counted every 10 years. So it's ingrained in the Constitution. So it's not just counting citizens. It's not just counting, people that live in a certain area. Every single person in the United States has to be counted every 10 years. So that's why it's always every decade, 2010, 2020, the next one will be in 2030. And so basically what happens, and this data is what's used for almost everything that the federal government does that affects us. So as to our congressional districts are drawn based on the census data, the number of people that live in your area. What resources come to your neighborhood is based on the census data. So what schools are built is based on the census data as to how many people are living in that area, what the age group of the people living in that area is. So if they see that based on the census, you have a lot of children that are preschool aged, so they know in about 3 or 4 years, they need to make sure there are elementary schools available for those children in the coming years. So the data is used for a whole lot of things. And then as a business owner also, the census data is what is used as to where businesses go. So as I was researching where to put my cafe, part of what I used was the census data. What is the population of people that live in that area? What is the demographic of the people that live in that area? You know, income demographics. All those data is what's used to put that businesses use as to where they need to be and put their businesses. They know there are people living there, and they know they're going to get a return on their investment if they were to open there.
Excellent.
Awesome. So I know that there's a lot of stigma in minority and immigrant communities surrounding the census, and when I say stigma, negative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to us about that negative thinking and why that thinking needs to shift? You've mentioned the financial impact, the economic impact that the census has. Talk to us about how that stigma has negatively impacted our communities as minority communities, and high communities as have high immigrant populations.
Okay, so I'm an immigrant myself. So I moved to the United States in 1986. So I was born in Nigeria. I lived in England. I lived in Nigeria, and I've lived in the United States since 1986. So I'm well aware, of the immigrant population, and pretty obvious, I'm Black.
Yes, sir. We know this.
You can tell. So I'm two of those two big things kind of affect pertains to me. There's a lot of stigma, and this comes to when I was being an enumerator 10 years ago. When I visited homes, some of the homes of people that did not want me to come in or count them were either immigrant homes or African American homes. I don't need the government to know my business. Let me. So, but the thing we need to know is this: if we're not counted, we are not getting the money that your neighborhood needs and deserves. So basically, if you're not counted, you don't also get the representation you need in Congress. Mm-hmm. Because after the census every 10 years, next year, I think it's by March next year, the Census Bureau sends the data out to the states. And based on the number of people in your areas, how your congressional district maps are going to be drawn and how your state district maps are going to be done. So if you don't have everybody counted, you're going to lose congressional district, or even in your state house and state legislators, you're going to lose representation because they're going to say there's not enough people living in those areas.
Give us an example of what that looks like, Akins. I mean, I know for like a Texas or a small place like Iowa versus California, like what does that mean in real life?
For example, like if we want to talk about congressional districts and even population wise, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if it's Wyoming or North Dakota, South Dakota. So one of the states only has enough population, and I think even Maine, to have one congressperson. Mm-hmm. However, they have 2 senators.
Mm. Okay.
So the Congress is really the representative body. That is so, and that is determined by the number of people that are counted during the census every 10 years. So when you see that they don't even have enough people there to have more than one congressperson, but then they have 2 senators. So you see what power those small states have when it comes to laws that are being passed, because that senator from that small state that only needs 200,000 people to vote for them can veto anything that somebody from California that needs 60 million people to vote for them. So you can see the disparities that creates. But then the big piece about it is also when redistricting is being done, is if we don't have everybody in our neighborhoods counted, we will lose congressional representation. So, and a big piece of it is we need to make sure everyone that is living in your home as of April 1st, 2020 is counted. Even if your cousin is living with you, is living with you, they need to be counted as of April 1st of 2020. Whom are the people that are living in your home that have lived there for weeks and months that's where they normally reside? They need to be counted. The census data cannot be used to track you in any other ways. I know earlier this last year there was a lot of fights in that the current administration was trying to add the citizenship question to it. And part of that was, in all honesty, if we're going to be blunt, is to scare immigrants and people from answering that question because they think they're going to be cracked by someone who comes to their house. Because the census has nothing to do with your citizenship. It has to do with the fact that you live there. Because the fact whether you're a citizen or not a citizen, if you live in an area, you're using resources.
That's right.
And you're competing, so you need, and you're probably paying taxes, and you need those resources to come back to your community.
Yes.
So,
yeah. You just made two super powerful statements, and I don't want that to go unaddressed. So, number one, they're not concerned about whether you're a citizen or not. So, don't worry about if you're an immigrant or whatnot, that you can't complete the census. That's the one thing. And then two, you mentioned, so cousin Ray sleeping on the couch, he's not on the lease or the mortgage. He still needs to be counted on that April 1st, 2020 census.
Even though because this information is not going to your landlord.
Right.
He needs to be counted because guess what? Cousin Ray is living in that community.
Right.
Cousin Ray needs to be counted.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we need to make sure. And this data, please, I don't know how many more pleases I can say. make sure your people and everybody you know gets counted. If you don't get counted, you are losing a whole lot of money. It could be millions, if not billions, depending on the area of the country you live in or what, the size of your community.
So I'm from a small town in Mississippi, and Mississippi is historically always dead last in a whole lot of stuff. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But in our communities, I can only imagine, how many people are not properly filling out the census or are not filling them out at all. But then Mississippi is also traditionally a Republican state. And this is not about Democrat or Republican. I just want to put that out there. It's not about the Democrat or Republican, but it is about what we can do to ensure that we have the type of representation in our government on both state and federal levels that we want to have. So if you are a Democrat and you're upset because you're not getting the type of funding or the type of representation you want in your state Congress and Senate, as well as on a national level, federal level, and Senate and Congress, then it's probably because we're not standing up and being accounted for. And also from an economic standpoint, if we're not standing up and being accounted for, when it's time to divvy out monies on that state and federal level to bring in monies that are needed to build up communities, then that money's going somewhere else because they say, well, ain't nobody living there.
Absolutely.
So there's no need.
So basically,
and it's not going to, cycle back through the community because there's not enough people there to utilize those resources.
Absolutely. So basically, if you're not counted, you don't count.
Right.
If you're not counted, you do not count. Yeah. So that's why it's critically important. And so let me let you in on a little secret. If I would like any of you when in your spare time to Google the prisons in your community and where they're situated.
Hit them.
Most prisons are situated in small towns. And there's a method to the madness.
This is true.
Most prisons are situated in small towns. And the reason for that is this. For the census, prisoners are counted currently in the town where the prison is located in.
Oh my goodness.
So for example, you have a town of 5,000, 10,000 people. You have a prison with a population of 3,300, 3,500 people. The prisoners do not enjoy any of the resources of the town. But when it comes to the federal dollars that's coming for the town, those prisoners' resources are coming to that town. So back in 2016, there was an open, and I just to make sure I have the accurate number. I want to pull it up here so to make sure I'm not giving wrong information. So back in 2016, the Census Bureau did an open public comment as to whether prisoners should be counted based on their last address and where they actually live, or with the prison where they're currently situated at. There were 77,887 comments that came back. Only
70,000. You said 70,000?
77,887 people responded to that public comment. So either wrote in, called, or that basically to give their opinion whether they should be counted in where the prison is or be counted at their last address, which is their home.
Okay.
So of that number, only 4 people wanted the prisoners counted at the prison.
What? 4 people out of 77,000.
So why are they still counted at the prison then?
Well, you can imagine, because of the resources that could be lost. So one of the articles I even read earlier today in Southwest Virginia, you have a county that has 11,408 people that live there. Of that 11,000, 28% of them are prisoners.
Woo!
Wow.
So the county is fighting the census making the change, because with that, they're going to lose representation in Congress and all that, because the population is going to drop below the threshold. So usually when I say this, people say, well, what about kids in college? Kids in college are going to be counted at their college, but there's a huge difference. When the kids in college, they're using the resources of the town.
Right.
Yeah.
They're using buses, they're using the library.
Yep, the businesses.
Resources from the town. However, when you're in prison, you're not using any resources of the town. You're not using public transportation. You're not using any other than, you're being housed there. And the people from the town are probably the ones that are employed there. None of those federal resources are coming to you as a prisoner.
As a prisoner, yeah.
But the town benefits because of your head count.
You've been counted as a member of the town.
Wow.
That statement right there was the one that caused me to want to do this live today, because I don't think enough of us realize that while we're sitting back, or some of us, I won't say all, obviously, but some of us are like, oh man, that US Census, I'm not getting involved with that. Why they need to know my count, this and that. But on the flip side, there's a small town that knows they don't have enough people, but they do have a prison there and strategically put there. And they're counting those people. In this example, you give 28% of that population for that town is prisoners that will not benefit from any of the resources coming in, not the roads, not the schools, not the businesses, retail, any of that, but they were still taken advantage of by headcount. So people, this is so important. Let's not make this a political situation. This is, especially if you own property in a place, you have to see this as a benefit to the resources coming into your town. I live in Carrollton, Texas, where the roads have been beat down. I mean, I think there was old stagecoaches running up and down these streets because there's so many potholes.
In my hometown, the roads at one point were so bad, Vic. My daughter got a little bitty Pontiac G6, an old model Pontiac G6. That thing about this big, you sit in, pothole big enough to fit the car in it, all over town. And it was like that throughout many places in the state of Mississippi. And I was like, what is going on? Where is the money going? Somebody need to fix the roads and the highways in Mississippi. Now, on the flip side, it has gotten better. It has gotten better. That was a couple of years ago. It has gotten better over my last visit there last year. But, thinking about things like this, the resources that we need, we have people, the people that we have in position in Congress and the Senate, state, local, and federal, they're fighting the fight that they can fight, but we're not equipping them with the tools that they need to fight on our behalf. When they're saying more money, we'll give you more money for what? Having worked in finance in the government, when you get a particular pot of money that's going, every year when that fiscal year is over, no matter how small that unit, that flight, because I did Army and Air Force. My husband was Army, but I had the pleasure of being able to work with the Air Force for some time as well. We would spend money like crazy at the end to keep that amount of money that we were getting the same.
To come back next year. Because if you don't use it, you lose
it to us again next year. And so when you're talking about how they use the census data, it brings that to mind. So if the number of people is going down every 10 years and not increasing every 10 years, then you're going to cut my funding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough people there to support it. So if this is the things that the census is being used for, we as the people have to start to understand that representation as well. I get the type of representation that I deserve from my community.
Absolutely.
When we have the people to support that representation. We have to have come to a place of having a clear understanding of what this data is and what it's used for and how it can benefit us, so that our voices can be heard and so that we can receive some of the economic resources that we need to receive in order to improve our communities.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's all about dollars. At the end of the day, it's all about the Benjamins. We're all paying federal taxes. We want to make sure that the accurate amount of dollars that your community is entitled to comes back to your community. I mean, African Americans are the largest consumers in this country.
Mm-hmm.
We spend trillions of dollars every year. So we need to make sure some of that money is also coming back to rebuild our community, that we're getting some of the Starbucks coming into our community instead of just the loan sharks
exactly
and the liquor store.
Absolutely. And the payday loan stores and all that stuff.
So
man.
we want to make sure that things are being built in our community. Because I mean, where I live here, if I drive within a mile, I will be in about 3 different elementary schools that were built in the last 4 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's an elementary school literally 3 streets down from my house right now. And if I come out of my community, they're building a brand new one right behind my community.
Yeah.
Less than half a mile apart from each other.
Yeah, that's important. So I'm going to read out a statistic. In the meantime, Laquita, do you mind bringing up the PowerPoint slide that Akins put together with some important timelines? I was reading this document, the 2020 US Census. And by the way, you should be receiving the mailers now at your residence that gives you the option for the first time to not only do it by mail, but over the phone and online at 2020census.gov. But I just want to read this before you go into the PowerPoint, Akins. So it says here, in 2016, Texas received $59.4 billion in federal funding based on census data, or break it down per resident, $2,132 per Texas resident. An undercount of 1% in the 2020 census could result in a loss of funding of at least $1,161 per Texas resident. So in other words, if 1% of the Texas population decides to not do the U.S. Census this year, then that could put at jeopardy almost more than half of the money that was allocated per Texas resident. That's a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money being thrown away just because we didn't do a free census. So I just really thought it was important because, again, I'm one of them guys that in 2000, I was like, man, forget this census, man. Why I'm do all this? Why they need to know all this? But of course, I was in my 20s, early, didn't think it was important. Now, as a business owner, a landlord, a property owner, this stuff is critical to me. I need them to fix those roads, and I need them to put the schools there that are high quality. And if it comes down to me just making my census vote and telling them how many people in my household, then I'm going to do it. It takes 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
I just wanted to cover some key dates. If you can go to the first slide, I think there's a slide right before that. So, yep, you were just on it.
Wait a minute. Here we go. Let me get to the first one.
There we go.
Okay.
Here we go.
So some key dates to kind of think about. Almost every home will receive, you're going to receive the census letter in the mail between now and April 1st. So 95% of all homes will receive this mail. 95% of all homes. only 1% of households will not get this form, and somebody will have to actually come to your house. The other 4%, there will actually be the other 5%, there will actually be somebody that comes to your house and drops up the form to you. So everybody should receive that in the mail. Okay. So, and census, so on April 1st is Census Day. That is the date in which the count, basically that's the day you count who lives in your house, and everybody that lives in your house are listed on that census on April 1st. Between May and July, if you did not fill out the census, they haven't received your census from you, then you'll start getting visitors, the enumerators coming to your house to trying to come and count the folks at your house, in your homes, for the census data to make sure it's accurate. On March 31st, 2021, and I think I mentioned this earlier, that's when that census data is going to be sent to the states so they can do all the redistricting as to whom your your redistricting map will be redrawn. And it's also, that's why the election next year for your local state representatives are important, because they will be the ones that are going to be redrawing the maps after the census data is given to them in March. Okay, you want to move to the second slide?
Sure thing.
So the you can fill out the census, and you don't even have to, if you haven't received your mail, you can go fill it out now. You can do it online, the easiest way. If you don't have a computer in your home, I'm sure we all have cell phones, and we can get online on our cell phones. All you got to do is go to www.my2020census.gov, and you can fill it out online. You can also just get on your phone now. You don't have internet, you have your phone, just call 844-330-2020, and you can fill out the census with somebody on the phone. So you have the online option, the phone option, and then the third and final option is the paper, basically the snail mail option of either somebody coming to drop the form off to your home or the enumerator coming to your house to actually fill out that form while you're there. And if you want to move on to the last slide, please.
All right.
So, who should be counted? Everyone that's in your home as of April 1st, 2020. The census is supported by 13 languages, and I didn't want to list all on there, but there's support for 13 languages if you call on the phone. If you speak Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, Russian, I'm trying to remember some of the languages that support, so there are 13 languages supported if you call on the phone. If you go to the census website, you can change that site to 59 different languages.
Wow.
59 different languages. So while I'm on there, I'm going to tell you guys another little lie. What is the official language of the United States of America?
It's supposed to be English.
The United States of America does not have an official language.
Wow.
That's the big mistake. Everybody say, oh, you got to speak English. That's why if a preponderance of people speak a certain language in an area, all federal papers and information have to be available in that language. All of us that are young, like people need to speak English. That's actually not correct, because we all speak English. That's the language we have in common, but the United States does not have an official language.
Wow.
Hence why this information is available in a plethora of languages.
Right.
That's why, if you're an immigrant, be counted. It's probably available in the language you speak for you to be able to fill out that form.
So I have a question for you, Akins, and thank you so much for sharing this again. The timelines, the ways that we can communicate, and obviously who should be counted. So someone made a comment on my watch party, just be very careful. It's not free money, because it is tax money. I know you're not a CPA, but anything you want to share or glean on that topic?
All of us are paying taxes. So it's not free money. There's no free money anywhere. But if I'm paying taxes, I want my portion of that tax to come and help my neighborhood out.
Right. There you go.
So there's no free money, but guess what? If you're working, you're paying taxes.
Yep. If you're a business owner, you're paying taxes. Yeah.
To you. But if the money is divvied out based on population. So basically, if I'm paying all the taxes, but everybody's not counted in my neighborhood or not counted in my state, part of my federal taxes goes to another state where it's needed,
Yeah.
where there are more people.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't matter whether you are a citizen or non-citizen, because the big myth and the big thing that's an issue right now is those people who are non-citizens aren't paying taxes. That's a lie.
Yeah,
they work.
They work.
You
so
know,
they're paying taxes, they just can't file to get a return.
When they're buying, they're paying rent. They're renting. They are buying food, they're buying clothes, they're paying utilities. Everything in America just about has a tax included in it.
Absolutely.
So they might not be paying federal income tax or FICA, as it were, because if they're getting paid under the table, then they're not really getting paid that. But when they use their money to buy the things that they need to sustain their way of life, they're paying into that. So that tax money is going into the communities where they live.
Absolutely.
So the tax monies that we get back in our communities, we should get it back, and we should be entitled to get back what we give.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A great
commentary. I mean, it is critical to be counted. It is critical to count.
Right. And I know many of us or many people are, that don't get involved with voting, which I think you should be voting for sure, especially on your local level, you should be voting. But I think it's super important to understand that these dollars absolutely do make a difference. I'm telling you, when it comes down to the types of schools that you have, the resources, there's still schools in parts of this country that don't have laptop computers. Absolutely. Like, I mean, literally, that's you have to have that in today's society, right? So there's schools that really don't have this, and you can look at this as being part of the reason because they don't get the adequate amount of resources pushed into those schools.
Just think about the COVID-19 issue right now. My kids are going to be out of school now for two weeks straight. I got an email from their school that basically they're not going to be doing all their work online. So imagine a school district that doesn't have online access, or the neighborhood or the community doesn't have, access to the internet because the lines haven't been put there. They're not getting educated right now.
Right.
So all those things are critical, and it all starts with the census data as to knowing who's where, how many people are there, and how do they get counted.
Right. Absolutely. Now, this is good stuff, man. So we appreciate you sharing. Obviously, people can go to my2020census.gov, or even, I think on here, it's even showing 2020census.gov to get more information, to do some research on it. Check your mailbox. It's not going to, at least the ones that came to me, didn't have your specific name, but it's based on your address. Exactly.
Just your address,
I was able to
complete a unique number that you can put in. And even if you don't have that unique number, once you go on the website, there's a little link on the bottom that says, I don't have it. You click on it, and then you can just enter all your information right then and there. It is pretty simple and easy. I did mine the day I got it. It took me all of 5 minutes to fill it out.
That's right. Don't forget to count cousin Ray, that baby that you've been babysitting the last 3 weeks just didn't leave. Yeah, grandma, great grandma. Count everybody that's in your house as of April 1st. It's very important that you do that. So we appreciate that. So Akins, you mentioned earlier at the top of the show, you have 3 salons. You're in construction on a coffee shop. Tell us a little bit about your businesses, man, for those folks here in the Frisco, North Dallas area.
Yeah. So my wife and I, we own 3 Regis Smart style salons. Those are the salons that are located inside Walmarts. So we cater to basically anyone and all hairstyles. That one, whether from a haircut to color services, you name it. Well, we do it. So, and those we have a location in Decatur, we have a location in Hickory Creek, Texas, and a location in Denton, Texas. So that's one of the we own those 3 businesses, and then I'm in the process of opening a Sweetwater's coffee shop, Sweetwater's Cafe, here in the Little Round Frisco border. So we're actually going to be breaking ground on construction any day now.
Nice. Yes, sir. Beautiful.
Those the craziness I've gone through trying to get this going. So we're going to be breaking ground and getting that up and up. So with the Sweetwater's coffee, the easiest way I can explain it to people is if you think about a Starbucks, but with all clean label items. So all our food, no preservatives. We don't use any additives. If it needs to be sweetened, it's with cane sugar, not fructose, not anything. If it needs butter, it's butter, not margarine. We don't use any preservatives on our thing. All our coffees, if a majority, if not all of them, are fair trade, organic. So we want to make sure that the people that are making our coffees and that we're buying the coffees for, they're being paid a living wage, to pick those coffees. So it's all fair trade, organic. We have tea from sourced from all over the world. I fell in love with the brand when I was, I lived in Massachusetts for 30 plus years, and then I moved to Texas 4 years ago with a company that recruited me to come out here. And then they decided to move to Colorado. So I could have moved to Colorado. I prefer the weather, because it's a little too hot for me in Texas.
Lord, here you go.
But I haven't moved the entire family down here, and then my wife having to move out here. We just finished building the house. I did not want to have to move out to Colorado. We decided, okay, hey, let's get out on our own and kind of like, create our own businesses and, build some generational wealth
there you go.
For us and for our children. So that's why we decided to go out on our own. It's not easy, but the payoff is going to be great. Once everything is all settled down and everything is built, it'll be fantastic.
That's beautiful, man. We appreciate you sharing that. Absolutely. If you're in the North Dallas area, make sure you hit up them salons, get beautified at one of the salons for sure. And then definitely, I'm waiting for, when do you think, projected wise, you think you're going to open the doors on Sweetwater's? Yep.
So, barring any, with this COVID-19, everything kind of, barring anything, the goal is hopefully we're open by July. If everything going well, it should take about 2.5 months or so to build out. But the big piece is all the equipment you have to order. Are they going to arrive in time?
Yeah,
so everything has like a 10 week of plus time, and then with everything, nothing coming in or out of the country right now. All those things will slow things down a little bit. But the goal is hopefully we'll be open sometime in the July timeframe, and maybe it might be earlier. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood. If folks want to find out more about our coffee shop, that's why I put the SW Panther Creek. If you go onto that, you go to our Facebook page, like our Facebook page. I update it frequently. I'll be updating even more now with the construction going on to let you know when we're going to open, so people will find out when that opens up, so they can like our page. And if you want to get a taste of what we are going to be offering, there's actually 4 locations that are actually now open in Texas. There's one in Magnolia, Texas. I know that's a little far for the DFW area folks.
That's down Laquita way a little bit.
A little bit.
There's one in Richardson, Texas. There's one in Denton, Texas, and there's one in McKinney. So the one in McKinney is on the corner of Stacy. Basically, as you cross over from Frisco into McKinney. Yep. The one in Richardson is right after the Raytheon and the State Farm offices. That one is located there, and the one in Denton is located on Teasley in Denton. So you can kind of get a taste of what's to come for my locations.
Very nice. I love it.
Yeah.
This has been good. Laquita, any questions, comments, concerns, anything?
No, this has been some great information, Vic. I love what Akins is doing there with building generational wealth with the salons and with the coffee shop, because that's what it's all about for at the end of the day. What legacy are we leaving to our future generations? Yes. I know you usually ask, how do you see yourself in the future? I think he's already answered that with how he sees himself in the future, building that generational wealth, leaving a legacy for his family and for generations to come. That's a beautiful thing. But most importantly to me, not to minimize anything that we do as entrepreneurs, but the information that he's given to us concerning the census and census data has been invaluable. I know the census happens, but that's all I knew. What what they do with it or what they don't do with it wasn't something that, my moment of transparency is I wasn't fully aware of it. But having him to come on today and share that information, it started to make a lot of things click. Like, okay, now I get it. And that bit about, prisoners being accounted for in the towns where the prisons are located. Yeah, that's questionable, especially when it was put out and the feedback came back. No, don't do that. Let them be counted where their homes are, because most prisoners are not fully supported by the prison system. Their friends and their families from their homes are sending resources into those prisons, whether those prisons have been privatized or they're still state and federally funded. They're sending money for those prisoners to be able to live, whether it's for medical care, whether it's food, whether it's clothes. Those families are still sending monies into those inmates. And so the monies are coming from the home states or the home cities, but the city where the prisoner is located is benefiting from
the federal resources.
The federal resources. Yeah, that's a question. That's a big question.
Yeah, and the other thing about it too is the average prison sentence in the United States is only 9 months. So basically, think about it. Someone that's getting counted for 10 years when they were only there for like 9 months.
9 months. And so that's 10 years with the resources.
That's why they need to be counted in their home.
And
go back to them when they get back home. So.
Right, exactly. Because it's not like the next day after the census is done is when the money drops into the neighborhood. I mean, I just gave the stat where the 2010 census, it was 2016 before state of Texas got that $59 billion. So anyway, whether again, doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on. It doesn't matter about any of that. This is not a political conversation. This is just about municipal resources from your city. How can you maximize that money? And I'm telling you, if you are an owner of any sort, this has got to be something that you are pushing heavily within your community. I too will do some part-time in enumeratoring, I guess you call it, where I'll get to go around people that don't fill out in my area. I'll be doing door knocking and making sure that everybody gets on there and gets counted for the community and for this Carrollton Farmers Branch area. So anything else you want to close out with, Akins?
Yeah, so on that note too, you can go apply to be an enumerator right now, wherever you are. And they are paying well.
Yeah.
In this area, they're paying you $22 an hour to knock on people's doors and just fill out census form. I don't think that's chicken change.
No, not at all.
So if you're looking for a part-time gig, over the summer, fill out an application to be a enumerator. I did it just for fun 10 years ago, and I'm thinking of doing it again this year myself because my weekends and night for nothing to do. Go knock on a few doors for $22 an hour. I'll take it.
That's right. Yeah, making an income while you're making an impact. That's what I like to call it, baby.
Yeah. We have a comment here from one of our viewers. She's actually one of our faithful viewers that follows us each week, Miss Patrina Stone. She says because she loves the fact that you emphasize the importance of being counted as long as you are residing in the house. And on the flip side of that, from a social services standpoint, that will bring in tons of funding for the community. An amazing point. Yeah. Our communities, especially our communities, we're so underfunded in terms of social services, whether it's in school or out of school, where social workers and other resources that are needed to make that type of impact in our communities. We're so extremely underfunded. And it's because we're not getting the fund, we're not being counted. I mean, a lot of things tonight are making a lot more sense of why there's such a fight to get those federal funds coming in. Because again, especially in the minority community, if we in the minority community are not standing up and being counted so we could get the resources that we need in our communities, then our people who are having those disabilities that need those social services, whether it's physical, mental, or both disabilities, we can argue and fuss and fight when we're at DHS and the other social services about the money that's needed. We can go to the schools and say, hey, you need to be able to have resources for my child for this program or that program, et cetera, et cetera. But if the money's not there because we're not being counted, And then we put those people who are working in those positions in a stressful positions. Like, okay, I know we need the money. How can we get it? We can't get it. So this is your point for your voice to be heard. It's an election year. It's a census year. It's time for our voices to be heard and to be accounted for on the levels that are important and that will bring an impact.
Absolutely.
No, this is powerful. We thank you so much, Akins, for coming down,
well,
hanging out with us today. Yeah, and I forgot I was supposed to wipe off the screen with this COVID-19 stuff. We all being safe.
The COVID-19 is not going to affect you for the census. You can do it online and on the phone.
That's right. No excuses.
Get on my phone.
No excuses. No
excuses. Get out there, be counted, be recognized. Tell your family, your friends, everybody get involved. And again, we thank you, Akins. Daquita, thank you so much for hanging in with 2 different broadcasts tonight. We appreciate you doing that. I think folks got a tremendous amount of value out of this last couple of hours with us today.
Be counted, so you count.
Yeah,
that's right. I love it. That's it.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. All right. It has been a pleasure, gentlemen. It has been great, Vic. Thanks for these last 2 hours. We've had 2 amazing guests. Those who have followed us over the last 2 hours, thank you so much for hanging in there. And please, please, please like, comment, and share. Go out to our Facebook pages, our YouTube pages, our Periscope, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Get this information into the hands of the people that you know can best benefit from the information that Lynn gave, as well as the information that we're getting here from Akins concerning the census and what we need to be able to do to land the impact in our communities. Well, until next time, next Monday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, we'll be right back here with another amazing guest who's going to come and talk about some things that, that are pretty key, in this economic climate and the loss of the value of our traditional fiat currency. I'm very, 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 very excited to be bringing on a cryptocurrency expert. He's been in crypto for over 10 years. He's got some great information to bring, and how we as a community, as real estate investors, as business owners, and as your average individual, what we need to know about cryptocurrency and how it can benefit us and how it's going to be the currency of the future.
Awesome. Great. See you next week, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. Create your future self live. Peace.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.